Greetings and salutations, Afrolytes. It is I, AfroMandias, back with another video today. It's been a minute. I know this video is kind of coming up a little bit later down the line. It's been one in the making. It's actually my third attempt actually doing this video. I've just been so busy trying to do a bunch of other things. I just haven't had the time to do it, and I kept like fumbling, what I'm trying to get across. I know most of my videos are just me talking, but I kind of like this style. I like the me just kind of telling you what's at the top of my head and just kind of giving you the rough estimate about what these characters are and what their stories are. So, I'm back with a new video today, and today we're going to be talking about part 3. That's right. If you've been following me, I've already had part 1 and part 2 set up, so now this is part 3. Part 1, I just basically go over like who I am and what I want to do with this with these characters and universes. Part 2 is basically, explaining what the Chronicle universe is, what the characters who came from the Great War and ended up in the Chronicle universe, and I call it the universe, because it's nicer to say, and it just the Chronicle universe, or the CU as I like to say. But basically, it's just, part 1 and part 2 just kind of go over the Chronicle universe and who I am and what I want to do with these characters. Now, today we're talking about part 3, which is going to be my Legend universe. Yes, that's right. 7-year-old me was cooking with these names. I don't know. I don't know how I came up with these names. They just kind of came to mind, and it was easy, really. I apologize. Please ignore that. I was young, had a really busy week. But it's just, Chronicle and Legend just kind of made a lot of sense to me, and I didn't know like which name to choose for my first universe. I just decided to go with Chronicle for that one. But Chronicle, Legend is kind of, think of it as like the sister series. Now, obviously, it's not like I say sister series, but I hold these two universes at higher regard compared to like all of my other universes, because these are my two, you know, these are my two IPs that focus on these characters, right? Um, Obviously, it's absent of, Alva and David because they reside in the Chronicle universe. In this universe, we're going to be focusing on the three main IPs, right? The three main IPs of Red Tatanka, Junito, the Alien Blade, and the Rising Renegades. So strap in, buckle yourself up. We're going to be here for a minute because we're going to be going over not everything, kind of like my last video. It was just more or less, me explaining what these characters are doing. It's like an abridged version, because if I tried to tell the entire story, one, I wouldn't be able to because it's just so much, and I would definitely leave a bunch of things out. And two, we'd be here for hours, and I know you guys don't have that on your on your plates, so again, this video is going to be around, this video may be a little bit longer because I'm kind of exposing this on you guys, but just strap in, grab yourself a snack, grab yourself a couple of drinks, and just allow Big Papa Afro to just have your time and explain my universes. So let's go back to the Great War. Yes, essentially we're going back to the Great War again, but the Great War is basically the catalyst of what kicks off these universes, right? So, Great War, if you guys know from my first video, is a war between the four factions. And I say between the four factions, but it's more or less between the two factions, the Xerxians and the Jurians, not the Jurians, the Jurians, the Jury Rays, the Cyclops and the Cat-like people, basically. So it's a war between them, and the Xerxians get aid from the Jurians, while the Jury Rays get aid from the elementals, gaining land and resources and technology, while the while the Xerxians get their brutish might, get the brutish might of the Jurians. So, battles kind of equal. Obviously, wars don't determine who's right, but determine who's left. So remember, there's no such thing as winners in a war. Um, but we go to the end of it, and it's down to all the patriarchs of the armies. Well, all except for Yami, because Yami was the first to go. Also, pay attention to that name Yami, because it is going to come up again. So, but Yami and the elementals are kind of like, okay, we like to live. This war just isn't for us, so we're gonna bounce. So the elementals are the first ones to essentially try to leave, and because Cinderella Man basically blew up their planet and they're dying off. So Yami is the first to go. So the only ones who are left are King Adam, Set, and Raijin. Those are the three head, patriarchs of the army and the entire race. And excuse me, if you were to go back to my part one, I explained that, not everyone's in the best of moods, because, let's just say that everyone's families and cultures and planets are dying because of this one single farmer who just is too angry to die, and is also filled with complete and utter hatred because this culture, family, and planet is dead. So he's going to inflict it on them. But we're going to be focusing on a character right now. His name is Jin. Jin is the older brother and the first son of Raijin. I know, creative naming scheme there. But we're going to be focusing on Jin right now. Jin is the general of the Raijin army. And they are the Jury Rays, and this older sibling of Himawari are Rose, Jack's future wife. Pardon me, feet itches, I'm sorry. But we're going to be focusing on him throughout most of the story. He's actually going to be the equivalent of Jack, and I say that, but just keep in mind that this is not like these stories correlate in a way that it focuses on them becoming better individuals and not having to be encapsulated in this one thing. But Jin, he's basically at his last ropes. He figures out that his sister is kind of mingling and getting it on with Xerxium, which is a people he's been fighting for basically his entire life. So he's kind of really upset about that. And of course, he had to leave behind his friends and his family to to say, for instance, he never really had a childhood. He was more or less bred and taught by his father to become a fighting killing machine. So Jin never really got the experience of living a royal life. I guess he was more or less trained to be a killing machine. So when it all comes forth, Jin wants to at least die by his father's side. That way he wants to show his father that his training didn't go in vain, and that he wants, death before dishonor and whatnot. Raijin realizes that he basically kind of screwed up as a father, says, no, I want you to leave this planet. I messed up as a father, and I want you to at least live a life to where you can say it's your own instead of mine. So Raijin kind of kicks Jin off the planet. Jin is not happy about this, not in the slightest, because he wanted to at least show his father that he appreciated him and his time together before he basically saw his father die by the hands of Cinderella Man before he got blasted off. So Jin is not really in the best state of mind right now, but his rocket is going to crash land on Earth. Now, you guys are wondering, Afro, how do these characters meet up? Because they land on Earth. You say that they landed on Earth, but in the last video, you never mentioned Raijin or, any of the other characters that exist in this universe. They never correlate or meet up. That's because they do land on Earth, but they land on a different Earth. All right? Walk with me right quick, okay? So, you guys know the death of the dinosaurs, right? The meteor crashing into Earth, explosions, left a big crater, right? So, in my universe, this is an alternate universe where the meteor crashed into Earth, but instead of just leaving a big dent in there, it actually broke it in half. Okay, you guys still with me? So, of course, the Earth still has its moon, but the meteor that became, the crater was so big enough that it became its own moon, right? So the Earth split in half. Okay, imagine the, my head's the sun, right? The Earth split in half, and it's now floating, and it goes around the big sun. So now there are two Earths that orbit the same sun. You guys still with me? So the crater that split the Earth is now Earth 2. We'll call this one Earth 2. We'll call this Earth 2, Earth 2's moon. So now Earth 2 is going around the other side of Earth 1. Earth 1, is, Earth 1. That's where Chronicle is at and Legend. Now, they call each other Earth 1. Both of them are called Earth 1 or Earth Prime because they don't know of the other's existence, right? They just believe that they were the first to exist, and the other one is called Earth 2. So, I'm just going to call it Earth 2 for simplicity's sake, but Earth 2 formed and became a new Earth, while Earth 1 also formed and became an Earth. So, in my universe and continuity, there are two Earths that orbit a very big sun. We just haven't discovered them because the sun is so big that they haven't really, and they saw it as a waste of time because they knew that they were the only ones. There's no way, or they say that they're the only sentient beings, but now we have talking crocodile people, talking cat people, space cat samurais, and talking cyclopses. So, they believe that there are other life out there, but nothing like Earth, right? So now, that's kind of my explanation about why there's two Earths and why they don't, these characters go to Earth, but they don't go to Earth. They go to another Earth. You guys still with me? All right. So that's basically the explanation. So Jun crash lands on Earth 2. And we're going to be skipping away from Jin for a little bit because, Jin kind of needs some time to process everything that's happened. Lord knows he needs it. But now we're going to be looking at the first couple of characters I created, known as the Rising Renegades. Now, again, kind of like how I mentioned in my last video, I'm not going to be going over everything that happens in the Rising Renegades. I'm only going to be going over the more important parts and the characters that are present in the story. So let's look at the main characters that we're going to be focusing on, all right? We got Bonk and Blaze. Now, let's go over Blaze. Blaze is a female fire elemental. I told you they'll be back. So, to make a long story short, basically, Blaze's mom was trying to escort her off the planet that they were on because it was dying, because Cinderella Man and Yami fought and destroyed the seed that allowed the planet to live. There's a main seed that allows the planet that the elementals are living on to prosper, and allows them to, have their own kids, right? So obviously the male elementals woo, and the female elementals that, what I'm saying? Like, you guys get it. There'll be, there's going to be tons of fan art I already know. So, go wild with that, guys. But Sequoia, Blaze's mom, puts her on a ship, and before she's able to get on, she unfortunately perishes and sends the rocket to save her daughter. So Blaze ends up on Earth 2 as well, and she comes in contact with Bonk. Now, Bonk, I need y'all to stay with me, okay, is a clown. He's not a guy who dressed up as a clown or as a clown as an occupation. He is a literal clown. He is an individual who was born with a colorful, he doesn't have an afro, but he has like I don't know what you would call it. He has the drag strip down the middle, like it's completely bald in the middle, but he has like the two, I don't know what you would call that hairstyle, but he was born with that bright, big red nose, 13 size feet. kind of, the clown aesthetic, right? He is a clown. Um, my universe, clowns are a race of beings who just exist to play jokes and, laugh, so they're not malicious. There is a faction of malicious clowns, so I'm about to get to them in a minute. But, you know, clowns only exist to play jokes and have laughs with one another, right? So Bonk is part clown, and there's another clown, or the psychomedians. Afro, what? Psycho, what? Repeat that. What? Yes, a psychomedian. A psychomedian is what you would think of as an evil clown. So, you know how in popular media like, we have like different types of like, you know, evil clown. We have, give me a sec, Pennywise from Stephen King's It, Sweet Tooth from the heavy metal series. Shout out to my heavy metal fans out there. Joker. I'm trying to think of though that one clown from American. I was about to say American Psycho, American Horror TV show, American Horror Show. That one. Just evil clowns in general. You know how people are afraid of clowns, and clowns can be scary because they're beings who just laugh all the time, no matter what. So there's the idea of it just ripping your spine out and playing jump rope with it is kind of a terrifying thought. So you guys are wondering, Alex, Afro, how did you come up with that name? Psychomedian. Psycho comedian. Psychomedian. I know I'll be getting my check in the mail probably Friday. But that's kind of how I came up with it. It just, it rolls off the tongue easily too. Just psychomedian. But yes, psychomedians are just the more vicious, more feral version of what a clown is. They are more malicious and they will kill you. It doesn't matter whether they're trying to play a prank on you. They're going to kill you. Because they get satisfaction out of it. They're sadists, right? So Bonk is a psychomedian and a clown. Now, Afro, how did that come to be? Well, when a female psychomedian and a male clown. Okay, I'm gonna stop. But his mother Bonk's mother was Bubbles. Bubbles was a female psychomedian who hated the way that psychomedians lived and wanted to be a clown. Then her, and Bonk's father, whose name is Chuck, which is short for, get this, Chuckles, brought her in and taught her the ways of being a clown. Now, there's a whole side story about how they meet up and whatnot, and the story that I call it is just called Clown, and it's an acronym. I have it in my notes somewhere, but it's just a secret organization about clowns who want to spread joy and happiness and want to stop psychomedians from spreading. So, all is good, right? Everyone consented to that except for Slugger, who is Bubbles' brother, and Slugger hates clowns. He hates them so much. So, of course, he doesn't take kindly to his sister kind of falling in the arms of a clown, and he hates Chuck, and he hates the rest of the clowns for taking her away. But he comes back later on in the story using the power of Grinfall, which is basically clown hell, and becomes the psychomedian. But he's going to come back later on. So we have Bonk and Blaze. How Bonk ends up on Earth is that the Chuckles and Bubbles make a portal to get him out before their clown dimension is overrun by Grinfall. So he throws him through there to keep him away from the carnage, right? So now Bonk and Blaze, they meet up, and obviously they're not big fans of each other, right? They are oh, there's this weird clown person, then she's like, oh, there's this, or she's like, oh, weird clown guy, and Bonk is like, oh, weird red girl. So obviously they're not gonna be oh, people, social activity. No, they're in the woods and they're starving and they're alone. But they realize that they work better together because Bonk is actually a really smart guy. He's a really, really smart, intuitive guy. He's able to pick locks and whatnot. And of course, with them being homeless kids, they don't really have a lot of places to go to. So they kind of have to rob and, steal to survive. This gets them in a lot of trouble. People are like, look out for a clown and some small red girl. Um, so obviously they're just trying to survive. One night they go to an abandoned building though, and they go in there to try to get resources. But they're caught. They're caught by a woman named Mother Salem. Mother Salem was she actually, the building that they are in is actually a rundown orphanage that Mother Salem used to be a part of, because she hadn't had the ability to have kids, so she runs this orphanage as a way to kind of allow her to be a motherly figure. And she sees these two homeless kids, and of course her motherly instincts kick in, and instead of like calling the police or kicking them out, she instead takes them in and raises them. So that's Mother Salem. So she becomes their adoptive mother, and also teaches them like how she's also like not just a regular woman. She's very expert. She's really good in like witchcraft and whatnot. So is her sister, Mother Salem, Mother Selma. I know it's just switch the L's and the M's and A's, but you know, them two were originally crime were part of the crime organization, the Crime Underbelly that happened in the Legend universe. So Mother Salem is now their adoptive mother, and raises them and teaches them skills in combat to allow them to defend themselves. Right. So now we're in present day. So Afro, how do these guys get by? They are heroes for hire. I know. Stick with me right quick. So heroes for hire from Marvel. They are essentially that. People pay them to be like escorts or bodyguards and whatnot to kind of protect them, because there's corrupt police forces and there's bad people kind of running about. So people pay them like hourly, and it's reasonable. They get like $15, $20 an hour, depending on, how long they do it and whatnot. So they are paid by people to basically be bodyguards, right? So, that's kind of how they get by, and they give the money to the orphanage to allow it to at least stay up and running for a little bit. Now, I know you guys must be thinking, why is this orphanage run down? Who shut it down? That would be Yami. Ah, wait a second. Afro, you said Yami died on the planet, and on the dying planet was Cinderella Man. You're right. He did. This is Yami's son, who's also named Yami. Yami Jr., or Yami Omoboros, as I like to call him, is the admiral of this planet, or basically the world leader. He's not a nice guy. He's very corrupt, and he doesn't really care about humanity. He actually is just trying to get resources to try to see if he can regrow a brand new elemental seed and basically cultivate the earth to become a new elemental planet. Doesn't really care about humanity. He just wants to get rid of them to replace them with elementals. So that's Yami's secret plan, and and whatnot. So then that's Bonk and Blaze. Now here comes a rocket ship. Woo! Now I know what you guys are thinking. Oh, is this Jin? No. So in my universe, Jin basically lands in like the equivalent of California, right, on the East Coast. They are like in New York, so they are a couple states away. So Jin's not there, but it's another ship that lands, and they're in the city. They're called is not New York, but it's called Neo York. I know that sounds dumb, but it's an alternate Earth, so sue me, whatever. But it looks like New York. It has the same history. So, a ship crash lands in Neo York. They go investigate. Bonk is kind of apprehensive about this because it's a ship. We don't know if there's, it could be another one of you guys, or it could be something bigger, almost like maybe a weird crocodile person or a space cat samurai, saying rambly stuff. But Blaze is like, no, I have a good feeling about this. In fact, us elementals are able to sense one another, and I sense that there's an elemental in there, and he needs our help. And he's like, okay. So I'm not gonna argue with my sister. And of course, Blaze is a bit of a hothead, so her and him kind of get into an argument trying to see how to open up the ship. But the ship just explodes, and out comes our main character, Bolt. You want to guess what he can do? He can shoot lightning. Right. I am so good with these names. But that's Bolt. Focusing on Bolt for a minute, Bolt was also kind of saved. He was the same age as Blaze when the planet was dying. So his father, Cabal, kind of saw that it was going to be destroyed anyway. So he kind of put him on the ship anyways. His father, Cabal, and his mother kind of sent him off way before the planet was going to explode because he knows it was going to go down. So Cabal dies, so does his wife. So it's a triplet of orphans now. These poor kids, they can't catch a break with their parents. But Bolt was, instead of landing on Earth, it kind of went off course. Now, he was able to survive because elementals don't necessarily need to eat. They can go long periods of time without eating, but they do need to eat. And the ship had enough resources to where he was able to live off of it. So, in the span of, let's say he was like 6 when he went on there. So in the span of nearly 12 years, he was just floating in space, kind of looking out and, seeing the cosmos and whatnot, but he never really landed on Earth until now. So, of course, Blaze and Bonk kind of have to guide him through. He's a fish out of water, and think of him as like Drax, but he takes himself less seriously. He's more of a goofball. At least Drax from the MCU, not Drax from the comics. Drax was much cooler. My personal hot take, but he takes everything seriously. So like Bonk and Blaze is like, yeah, if he takes everything seriously, everything just goes over his head. And Bolt is like, no, it doesn't. I'm too quick for that. And obviously, hilarity ensues. So those are the 3 main characters of the Rising Renegades. Now, I'm not going to be going over everything that happens in the story. Again, we'd be here all day, but I'm just going to be going over the main players and what takes place. So next we're going to be introduced is Kova Dragoon. Kova Dragoon is a sand elemental, and he, is a captain of Yami's criminal underbelly, right? So he controls a sector in the city, and this allows him to have 2 commanders, that being Rhythm and Blues. Rhythm and Blues are actually double agents working as these not vigilantes, but as these costume characters as Rhythm and Blues. They're 2 blind twins who have the ability to turn into bats and whatnot. So they're metahumans. Some metahumans do exist in this universe. Not all of them, but metahumans do exist. I'll explain how metahumans came to be. But that's their abilities and what their role is in the story. They work as double agents for the criminal underbelly and a police force. So they kind of gather information from both sides and whatnot and report it. Dragoon doesn't know about this until much later on, but at the same time, he was also working as a double agent, but he didn't want to reveal it to everyone. Actually, taking that step back, he's the one who chose specifically them because he knew that they had connections, right? So that's them. They get introduced later on in the story. We have Clay Rockwell, who's also a rock elemental, kind of working on his backstory. I guess I'll go over Kova's backstory right quick. He's actually a father from the father of a couple of sand elementals. He leaves them, unfortunately, to participate in the Great War because it was required that all able-bodied elementals do that. And he feels a lot of guilt for it because he basically left his family to die. So let's just say that guilty hearts kind of flow through the entire Rising Renegade cast. Clay Rockwell, he's a rock elemental. It just think of him as like a less cool like Kova with his abilities anyway. You know, Kova has the ability to control sand while he controls rocks, which is just bigger pellets of sand if you think about it. But I'm still working on his backstory. He's going to be guilt ridden too. So those are the main characters that we're going to be focusing on. Oh, and Mother Selma, who is actually, I kind of like her aesthetic, but I'm still writing her backstory. She is actually like has more of a Western aesthetic, and there's like one scene in the comic which doesn't focus. It's like a flashback where Yami confronts her and burns a saloon that she's in. But instead of like, you know, the saloon collapses because it's on fire, but she walks out with a fire horse and a rifle. And when I draw it out, it's going to look so cool. I just imagine in my head, I'm like, whoa, it's so cool. But, you know, she's going to be taking place in the story, and, you know, she's going to have a role. So those are the main characters that we're going to be focusing on. And, of course, they meet some villains along the way, you know, to kind of stop them. One of them, you know, I'm not going to go over all of them, but I am going to go over the ones I think have a unique aspect to them. One of them is called the Pink Elephant. The Pink Elephant is a guy who dresses up in a pink elephant suit. Now, it started off as just a regular elephant suit, but he was a raging alcoholic. And, you know, he joined the criminal underbelly to kind of help, you know, keep his family afloat for the most part. So, you know, he was a raging alcoholic, and he, you know, just went out drinking one time, and in his drunken stupor, he destroys his home. And of course, you know, he kills his wife and he kills his baby boy. So as a way to permanently remind himself, he permanently bonds himself to the suit, and he dyes the suit in this bright pink, not only as a way to kind of humiliate himself, as a, you know, way to like, hey, look at me, I look foolish, I look like an idiot. But also, if you guys, you know, this is kind of an older like saying, but I think it's just really cool, and it's actually been in a Dumbo film, seeing pink elephants, which is a phrase that, you know, a person drinks a lot or is high, not in the right state of mind, essentially. So I decided, you know, pink elephant sounds unique. You know, seeing pink elephants. Oh, he's a big pink elephant who drank a lot, so it makes a lot of sense story wise. But he's also he's not like a major character, but he is like one of the villains that the Rising Renegades fight against. Talk about Yami. Yami is in a possession of a thing called a star shard. Now, I'm not going to go over too in depth about what a star shard is yet, but think of it as just a bone fragment of a star, a dead star, right? So Yami has control of one of those, and a star shard allows its user, whoever stabs himself, whether they are accepted or they have enough grit and determination to hold the star shard's power, allows them to become greater than anything else. So, like I explained in my part one or part two, part one, where the story of Cinderella Man, where he was struck by the Cinderella spark. The Cinderella spark is the soul of a star, but it's not like the soul of a star. It's just like the spark of one. So it allows them to become a Cinderella. Star shard, you know, once it stabs someone, allows them to become, you know, a star, I guess you can say. Not really a star, but it's like a star adjacent, a pseudo star. We'll say that. So, you know, that's, you know, he's in possession of that, and he's going to use that to kind of overshadow the world in darkness, to kind of essentially to block out the sun and block out the universe, to keep humanity from repopulating and getting rid of every life that exists in that universe. And he's going to do it with that star shard because it'll allow him to tap into his full darkness, full potential. And he's going to black out the sun and any other stars to completely eradicate any life, because all he wants is just elementals to live. So, you know, they realize this, and the you know, the underground like force that's trying to stop him also has possession of one of these, and they give it to Bolt, which he unlocks his, full elemental potential, and he becomes, pure light, because Bolt has the ability to control lightning. So pure light is just a next step up from, lightning, at least in my eyes. And then also it makes sense, like thematic wise, light versus darkness and whatnot. So that's kind of the story of the Rising Renegades. I'm still kind of writing some things out, and obviously you guys are going to be seeing snippets on my on my drawing page. But that's the Rising Renegades. Now we're going to be focusing on Red Tatanka. We're going to be holding off on Junito. I know, I know I kind of put him off to the side a little bit. His story is a little more important because it focuses on all the characters, but we're going to be going over Red Tatanka. Now, Red Tatanka is actually a very unique character because he's actually the story of my OC. If you were to go back to my part 1, I explained that I used to have this character named a Buffalo, or Awesome Buffalo, right? And I thought to myself, I was a bit stuck, right? Because I had, like, my main rule when I'm gonna make a universe is that I want there to at least be 3 IPs, 3 like mascots that are associated with it, right? So you look at the Chronicle universe. There's, you have Jack, World President Jack Flowers. You have the Jailbirds, and you have Bad Company, which focuses on Alva and David. So 3, right? Legend was kind of struggling. I had no idea who was going to be my main third, because I already had, I had Janito, I had the Rising Renegades, but I didn't have a third one. So I was just like, man, what am I going to do? I don't know what to do. And then I thought to myself, I was like, wait, I already have a couple of characters I can use for this. So I got my OC and I reworked it. Basically got rid of me because I realized that's such a shallow thing that artists can do. It can work sometimes, but it's only if you're if you're writing him well enough. But people can definitely tell if a character is like an OC, like their own, like self-insert, I should say. But people don't like self-inserts, so I kind of reworked that character where it's completely adjacent for me. But it started off from, what was his name? It was a Buffalo, then it was Captain Prometheus. Captain Prometheus, God, that is, looking back on it, that is the lamest name. That is so lame. Captain Prometheus, really? That's the best I could have came up with. Doesn't help that his name short sounds weird, so yeah. But Captain Prometheus, that's right. So that's kind of the foundation. But I realized, and I look back on it, it was boring. It was really boring because, what makes this character unique? Oh, he's named after a Greek hero, Prometheus, who was, took fire from the gods and gave it to humanity. That sounds pretty cool. But I wasn't feeling it, So I took him back and I kind of reworked him a little bit more. And then I kind of thought to myself, who haven't I added to my roster to where it's, because you look at it, I have like a diverse cast. I obviously have aliens, I have monsters, and I have humans, but it's a very diverse cast of humans. You have blacks, you have Hispanics, you have Asians, you have whites, European, right? So I thought to myself, who haven't I represented yet? And then it hit me. Native Americans. Unfortunately, a lot of Native Americans don't really get the representation that they should. Now, I'm not saying that they don't. There are a lot of Native American characters that exist in media. Nightwolf from Mortal Kombat. Thunderbird from Marvel. Thunder from Killer Instinct. Really great with those names, guys. But there's not a lot. So I decided to kind of throw my hat in the ring and make it a Native American character. I feel like there's a lot of folklore and a lot of stories that Native Americans have came up with that can really work for the mythos of this character. So I thought to myself, what can I call this guy? Because honestly, I like Buffalo. Buffalo sounds really cool. but I didn't want him to be called Buffalo because that sounds kind of lame. So I kind of reworked it, and I kind of looked at it, and I looked at the, I forgot which tribe it was, but their translation was called Tatanka. Obviously, I'm butchering that. I apologize, but you know, which translates to buffalo or bull. Tatanka is kind of like the like the Englishnization, of it, but it translates to bull. So I like the name Tatanka. Tatanka sounds cool. It sounds strong. It sounds unique. Then I thought to myself, you know, what color should he be? And I just thought, my original character was just red, so I just called him Red Tatanka. So from that day forward, my OC became Red Tatanka. And you know what that means? Spike's coming back. Yes, sir. I told you Spike, he's sitting up there. He's rotting away and he has a couple of cobwebs on him. Let's grab you, buddy. We're going to dust you off right quick. Mwah. Oh, my pride and joy, my second ever creation, Spike is coming back. So Spike is, the secondary character of the story. And, what the story focuses on. It's just what I explained back in my first video when I explained my, first characters. It's kind of the same thing, except, this character, his name is not Pythor, but it's the Constrictor, who is, a serpent dictator who wants to conquer different dimensions, right? In the process, he has beef with Spike because he killed his entire family and Spike's girlfriend. So Spike and him have beef. But also, I thought, these two characters can hold the show, but I kind of want at least something a little more to kind of add in there for a little spice. So I decided the third character that I introduced was a character named Dr. Jericho Schweetz. Dr. Jericho is a small sugar elf who has the ability to create any kind of sweets. Create like different types of antidotes using like sweet bases. So like ailments as taffy or like different types of like elemental cookies and whatnot that kind of give you abilities. But his main one is a chocolate chip cookie that allows him to turn into this hulking figure. Now, of course, like Jericho is he's a short guy. He's no more than like 3 feet tall, but when he turns into this hulking figure, he's no more than 6 feet tall. So, he's not the biggest like hulking, but he is, he's a big guy. And you guys will see what he looks like when I post him on the Instagram page with my Red Tatanka, post. Then I thought of another character named Sunny Wukong. Now, if you guys know Chinese legends, Wukong is a very famous poem written back in old Chinese literature. And Sunny is just the daughter of Sun Wukong. And she also has a brother named Macaque Wukong. Macaque is just another name for a monkey, so it's just Monkey Wukong. But either way, they are also characters in the story, but they unite together. And I'm still writing their story as well, so it's still kind of, hit or miss every now and then. But again, this isn't going over the story. This is just a bridge and allowing me to explain what characters reside in this universe, right? So that's Red Tatanka. Oh, and excuse me. The team is being led by a toad by the name of Mr. Toad. So to say that this cast is a little more out there is an understatement, but I feel like there's a lot of great story potential. And in one part, I do imagine that the Native Americans, to add coolness to it, Native Americans in this universe rode, instead of horses, dragons. So, I think that's pretty cool, especially when I draw it out on paper. But that's the story of, not the story, but that is Red Tatanka, focusing on, just the characters and whatnot. They're all going to play a significant role. I will tell you how they meet up. So Red Tatanka, or his name is Ezra Quill, is a news reporter who resides in New Jersey, which is around the same area that the Rising Renegades take place. So obviously, some later parts of the story they are going to meet up and have crossovers and whatnot, marketable crossovers, yippee. So but he is a Native American who is trying to investigate and uncover the underbelly of the villain organization that Yami was running. Also, I know what you guys are thinking is Afro, I know Bolt, obviously Bolt overcomes and takes down Yami, right? And I'm like, yes. Does he kill him? And I say yes. And you must be wondering who's in charge now? And that's a good question. Kind of side tangent, but there's a power struggle after Yami's death. Everyone's trying to take control of the world. And the Rising Renegades are kind of putting that as an odd, trying to stop that. So that's kind of how the story ends up. Back to Red Tatanka. Ezra, there, while I was doing my intro to anthropology class, there was a story about, what was his name? The Kennewick Man. And I thought that was just so unique. And obviously it's messed up because the U.S., our government essentially took this, prized possession and, from the Native American people, and instead of laying it to rest, they put it in a museum. I love our government so much. Isn't it just so nice? But, putting it on display for thousands of non-Native Americans to see, that's just so nice. Instead of laying it to rest. Anywho, focusing on the actual story at hand, the Kennewick Man is a major player in the story because the Kennewick Man was actually the first Red Tatanka. The thing is that the characters that Spike, Sonny, and Mr. Toad and Jericho, that's who they were looking for, but the Kennewick Man has been long dead. But Ezra lives on a reservation area for Native Americans. Very rundown city, but he does this job as a way to help financially keep his people stable, right? So he does jobs and, takes pictures for the, Bugle and whatnot, kind of like Spider-Man. But then one day he comes across I forgot what they're called, but they're the headwear of what the Native Americans wear. Like the army beret, I think is what it's called. Correct me if I'm wrong, but he comes across one of that and he puts it in his bag as a way to at least get something from the Kennewick Man because the Kennewick Man had dropped it. So he takes it as a way to at least, if I'm not going to be able to get everything, I want to at least keep this. So, obviously hilarity ensues. He meets up Sonny, who he goes to a zoo and he meets up Sonny, but Sonny is a monkey, a monkey that just kind of pokes at him or is poking towards his bag, and he's like, you want my bag? And the monkey's like, and he's like, I can't give you my bag. This is my bag. And the monkey goes up to him and just holds her palm out, and he's like, I this is weird. I don't like this. Are you hungry? And she's like, and she wants the bag. But hilarity ensues. He tries to tell the security in the zoo, but they think he's crazy because the monkey's not there anymore. But when he's there, he takes out the beret and he puts it on his bed and he looks at it for a couple of minutes and he feels something like a fiery, he never felt this way before. He gets hot even though the room is 68 degrees cold. He feels like he's on fire. He tries to drink himself some water, but it's not calming him down. But then he looks at the beret and he realizes that it's calling to him. So he picks it up and he looks at it. And he can feel the fire and the power that holds in this beret. And before he puts it on, a giant staff goes and knocks the hat out of his hand, and he realizes it's the monkey from the zoo. So he is very scared. He knocks the staff off, grabs the beret, and instead of putting it on, he just puts it back in the bag. And again, hilarity ensues, and that's how he meets up with the like gang and whatnot. He meets Spike, he meets Jericho and Mr. Toad and Sonny, and and they proclaim that one of the Agahi people, excuse me, what did I call them? They're a fictional tribe, but I will call them the Agahi. So they are looking for the fabled hero known as the Kennewick Man, and he laughs at them because the Kennewick Man he's not there, and they're like, no, the Kennewick Man, or they're looking for someone who is at least related to him, and then they show him that he is actually the fabled Red Tatanka, and obviously they show him like this glorious not hologram, but like astral projection of what he would look like as the Red Tatanka, and obviously he laughs at that because he's like, haha, that's not me, that doesn't even look like me, it's much more built, I'm more slim. He's but again, that's kind of what I have so far. They do meet up with a gang known as the Jersey Devils, run by a guy who is the Jersey Devil. So, gang related activity and whatnot, it focuses on that. But that's kind of what I have so far for Red Tatanka. Obviously, there's going to be a lot more going on, but that's just the main gist of it. Now, we're going to be looking at Jin. Jin, as I said, landed in California, and let's just say he's not really in the best of moods. He's angry, he's bitter, he's tired. But during this, during like his escapades, he comes across a woman named Shannon Briggs. Shannon Briggs is a conspiracy theorist, and runs like, I guess like I don't want to say InfoWars. Like, what would you even call that? Like just a video style thing where she goes over politics and just conspiracy theories and aliens and whatnot. She believes that aliens do exist because she's seen what's been going on in New York. It's been happening on the news, so everyone's kind of like, it's probably just a set of a new movie. And she's like, no, they're aliens and whatnot. So she and him meet up, and they form an unlikely alliance. She needs him because she can give him information about his people, and he needs her because he's on this planet. And again, things are kind of rough with the story right now, how they meet anyway. But they need each other right now, and obviously they form a relationship later on, and whatnot. But it's the story between Superman and Lois Lane. That's kind of my version of Superman and Lois Lane. But there's another character named Hoagie. Now, Hoagie is a Jorian human hybrid who isn't, he's, you guys are wondering, oh, is there a Jorian around? And it's like, no, it was actually made as a chemical compound, science gobbledygook that was inseminated inside of a human woman, and boom jams popped out Hoagie, who was used as think of Weapon X from the Marvel series, the X-Men series, the Weapon X program, where he was essentially sent out in different forests to kill and destroy everything that he saw to create the perfect weapon. Who was in charge of this, you may ask? One of my favorite characters I ever created, of course, Dr. Samuel Rodriguez Green Day. So he's not a good guy. He's a bit of a nonce, bit of a egomaniac. But he runs Green Corps, which is the main force that drives and creates all these different types of freaks. I mentioned the pink elephant a couple minutes back. They gave him the suit, the exoskeleton suit, and they are the ones who bonded it to him, at his request. But Green Corps is kind of running. It's like it's a pharmaceutical along with a weapons dealing organization. Think of them as a mixture between Stark Industries and Umbrella, but much worse. But Dr. Samuel Rodriguez Green Day, he is the Lex Luthor to Janito's Superman. He's more brains. He can fight. He, not to say that he's not a pushover. He's not a pushover or anything. he can definitely hold his own against Jin, but he's not, you know, he's not, he is, I say, he's superhuman. He is superhuman, but he's not like a metahuman. He's just really smart. He has different types of suits and armors. So think of him as, you know, a mixture between Lex Luthor, Batman, and Iron Man, right? So that's Dr. Samuel Rodriguez Green Day, and you know, his story. Obviously, there's a, you know, conflict that happens to where Janito gets involved, and that's through Mobzilla. Mobzilla is a character who has the ability to turn into a giant lizard, and you know, he's of Japanese descent, so I decided, Mobzilla sounds pretty cool, so Mobzilla. He's the antagonist for the first couple of parts for Janito, but then Mobzilla asks for Dr. Rodriguez Green Day's help in order to stop him, so he gets all these different types of villains that, you know, Janito fights against in the story, and then, you know, Green Day gets involved, and you know, puts on his like suit and armor and fights Jin. Jin beats Green Day and puts him in jail. So the story continues, but we're gonna be, you know, that's kind of the gist about what all the characters are doing in the Chronicle universe, where it's just, again, everything is still kind of rough right now. I'm still writing things out, but that's just the characters that reside in the Legend universe. So now we're gonna be going off the different like side stories, not side stories, but like I guess sequel stories that happen. So let's look at I don't have anything for Red Tatanka right now. It's probably going to be focusing on a character named Guy Impossible, the Impossible Guy, but or I'm still writing his story, so this is a little more ludicrous, but I'll do a different video focusing on him. But let's look at the Rising Renegades, right? So Day is saved. There's a power struggle, but they're keeping it manageable. But Bond kind of feels something. He feels a certain way. And that certain way is that he's alone. He doesn't really have anyone who he can relate to. Bolt and Blaze at least have the other elementals that they can go to for like comfort and whatnot, but he's the only clown. And he's not even a clown. He's a half clown, half psycho median. So, this guy is just kind of having internal conflicts with himself until one day he does come across a clown, a female clown named Gigi, or Giddy Giddy, as she likes to call herself, Gigi. So Giddy Giddy kind of shows, she's excited to see him because, she hasn't seen a male clown in years, or any sort of clown. So she grabs him and shows him the clown dimension. There's going to be, like, I guess I'll call it the Honkaverse. I guess I'll call it the Honka. I'm coming up with a name, don't sue me yet, but she shows him that and shows him, how the way that clowns live. And of course, he does remember how clowns live, and it doesn't seem right to him. Everything seems so off. He can't put his finger on it, but it doesn't feel right to him. So of course, he kind of leaves the Rising Renegades for a little bit, and then Lord Slugger, he came back. Again, I'm still writing things out, but it's a lot more emotional because Bonk realizes that he doesn't need, his family would want him to be his own individual instead of having to rely on others to, rely on other clowns to make himself feel like one. He doesn't need to feel like a clown. He is one. You can look at his skin, you can look at his nose, you can look at his hair. He's a clown. He doesn't need to be around other clowns to feel like that. And he realized, he has a family. He has a brother, he has a sister, he has mentors. He has a family. So he doesn't even necessarily need the camaraderie of being around other clowns because he never really needed it. He always had a family that he can call his family. So the story's a little more emotional, and it focuses like how Bonk feels about like being the only clown left, I guess. Giddy Giddy obviously starts off as working against Bonk and the rest, but she realizes that what she's doing is wrong and wants to help Bonk and whatnot, and obviously Bonk and her you know. But, you know, same with like Blaze and Bolt. So, you know, they kind of found each other, you know, thing, fling, flame, whatever. So that's kind of the story of Bonk, you know, in the Rising Renegades. But we're going to be heading over back to Jun. Now, Jun's story is in, you know, sequel story anyway, focuses on one of Jun's generals. Who are not generals, but like underneath a general, I guess. I don't know the exact rank for it, but you know, it focuses on him because Jun actually sent out, you know, them to at least to kind of keep the Jun race alive. He sent them out to live on a space colony and just kind of keep them protected until the war was over, right? So this, you know, general, I don't have a name for him yet. We'll just call him Kiryu. So Kiryu waits for his general. He waits for a signal. He waits for anything at all. But of course, you guys know how the Great War ends. Genito is put in a ship and he's blasted off somewhere else, far away from any sort of communication he can get, you know, in touch with these guys. So they wait and wait and wait, but they never hear anything. And it boils down to where they are running dangerously low on rations. And, you know, people are fighting and hurting each other just to eat, just to survive. So, you know, they're, you know, he tries to keep, the Kiryu tries to keep the morale as good as he possibly can. Everyone loves Kiryu because they see him as like a legendary hero and whatnot. So one day, unfortunately, food runs out, and now everyone's like, we don't know what to do. We're starving, you know. And Kiryu's like, just hold out hope. Just keep holding out a little bit longer. Jin would want us to keep going and to hold out hope. Just stay with us. You know, we're gonna make it through this. I never hear anything. So it gets to a point where, you know, one of the juries find like, you know, like some rations, and they almost fight and they almost kill each other over it. So, you know, Kiryu splits the apple, you know, splits the rations, you know, but that was the last one. So, later on, Kiryu realizes that there's nothing left that they, you know, can eat or survive off of. They're on a space rock, they're floating through nowhere, there's nothing in sight where it's inhabitable. So, Kiryu, to save his people, putting that in big quotation marks, to at least save them from the pain and suffering that they had to go through, he kills them all. This once, you know, beloved hero and, like, you know, beloved, like, hero for these people are now has to kill and to put their misery to an end. And obviously he is guilt-ridden, he feels awful, but another thing that he feels is hunger. He feels so hungry, but there's no rations. But there is. The bodies of those he slayed. So he eats them. He eats as much as he can till he feels sickly satisfied. Then he feels nothing. He feels numb. He doesn't know how to feel. He killed the last remaining jury rays, and he's eating them like some beast. You know, he almost is about to do the deed and put himself down, but a voice stops him. A booming voice. Drops his weapon and he looks around. Only to his horror, he realizes it's the Gashadokuro. Now, side tangent. The Gashadokuro is a Japanese yokai from Japanese myth, and he's represented as a giant, or I say he, but it is represented as a giant skeleton. And some stories differ from one another, but the main one is just unburied bodies that haven't been laid to rest. The soul combines into this giant man-eating skeleton. So, you know, in my interpretation, the Gashadokuro is the Gashadokuro in a way along mixed with the Wendigo. The Wendigo is a Native American legend which focuses on a malevolent spirit that inhabits a person's body when they resort to cannibalism, which that's what happened. So the Gashadokuro and Kiryu, like, you know, Kiryu says, "Begone, foul spirit, you will not hurt me. You will not hurt my people before they, you know, they are they are free from hurt. So the Gashadokuro says, I'm here to save you because your general didn't. Your general abandoned you and these people. So obviously that's kind of what I have so far. But he turns them into a proxy star. The Gashadokuro is a star, and he turns Kiryu into a proxy star. But that's kind of what I have so far. I know how it ends, but I'm kind of finding the middle ground. Again, this is just the abridged version, but I'm just kind of introducing you guys to a second sequel part of the story, going over what these characters are doing and what these characters are residing in. Obviously it's not all of it, and there's a lot more, but I just want to put this out there as the third, the trilogy of my videos, kind of going over who I am, what the Chronicle universe is and what the Legend universe is. But I'm really glad how it's turning out so far. I definitely have it in my head. I just got to put it on paper. And I appreciate those who've still been following me and those who are still liking my posts. And if you guys ever get the chance, if you guys do see my videos, it would mean a lot to me if you guys were to share it. I don't want to sound like I'm e-begging or anything, but anything, send it to your friends. I don't care as long as you have it in link somewhere. Do anything, because I feel like with these characters and these stories, I feel like we can go to a lot of places. And I also want to take this moment to say thank you to my dad. My dad, he has been there since day one. He has seen me draw and develop these characters since then and since now. And me and him, we have Sunday talks about, about just one, catching up, and two, how we are, and three, he always asks how's the creative stuff coming along? You still writing things down? You still drawing things out? And the thing is that he didn't have to. He didn't have to be as invested in this universe that I've created as much as he is. But he will deny it. He will say no, Alex always had that, kind of ingenuity. But I do want to say that if it wasn't for anyone, it would definitely be for him. My father has always been there to encourage me, and I just want to take the time to say thank you, Dad. I'm gonna make it short, but I just want to say thank you. And this is part 3 of Welcome to My World, a story of AfroMandias. Obviously it's not the same title, but I just want to say thank you all so much for your time, and thank you. I know we're going over a bit of an hour right now. I kind of went off on some side tangents and whatnot, but this is only the abridged version, and I can't wait to do more. And I just want to say, stay fresh and stay frosty, Afrolytes. I'll see y'all next time.